So, thank you. So, hello everyone, and welcome to our workshop session on faith-based organizations and urban development in the Middle East. My name is Wafa Dianati. I'm an architect and urban researcher at DPU UCL, and I'm co-convening this session with my colleague Gomech Karmak, who will introduce herself shortly. So just a little bit of introduction before we get into the discussion. The session is chaired by Azadeh Mashaikhi, who is here with us now. And we are also joined by 4 discussants from 4 selected countries in the MENA region. We have Azam Khatam from York University. We have Golchin Erdi from the French National Center for Scientific Research, CNRS. We have Amina Ekman from DPU UCL and also Hanadi Samhan, also from DPU UCL. And we have also received fascinating contributions and have here with us 4 participants. Let me see. Yes, we have most of our participants. We have Shabana Fayyaz from Qaidi Azam University in Pakistan. We have also Soha Hassan and Narges Abdullah from Mewana, Bahrain. And also we have Muhammad Al-Hamavi from DPU UCL. Just to remind you that you can find the workshop's brief, which includes the statements and contributions from the discussant and participants on the conference website. I really encourage you, especially the audience, to take a look at this document as it's the background and the basis of our discussions in today's workshop. So I think I can now ask Gomech to introduce herself and the session's outline. Thanks, Gomech.
Sure, thank you, Wafa. Hello, my name is Güneş Karamuk. I'm a PhD student at UCL in the Geography Department. I'm from Turkey. I'm grateful to be a part of this workshop. So thank you, Wafa and Azadeh. And I'll just talk about a little bit of the format of the workshop and the housekeeping. And so, as Wafa told you, in the statement we sent over, you could see the program. So we'll start. I will hand over first to Azadeh, who will introduce the aim of the workshop, and then in 3:10 we will start with our discussants. With Hanadi Samhan. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. And 5 minutes later, we'll move on with Dr. Gülçin Erdi. And in 3:20, we'll continue with Amina Bahşa Ekman. And then we will finish our presentations with Azam Khatam. And I just would like to tell you that unfortunately we have 5 minutes also when we move on to the participants who will introduce their reflections. I'm gonna have to remind you that you will have 5 minutes. So please have a look on the Zoom chat. Will send you directly a message saying that, reminding you about your time. And forgive me if I need to interrupt you when the 5 minutes is finally comes to an end. And so if we encourage anyone to, if they have any questions, please use the chat box and write down your questions. And we are hoping that towards the end, we'll have a very dynamic discussion sessions with Wafa. We'll certainly take into account your contribution in the chat box as well. So over to you, Azadeh.
Thanks, Gomech. Welcome, everyone. It's wonderful to see colleagues and friends here. I wish we were in the room together. It would be much nicer, but I'm still glad that this is happening. I want to especially thank Wafa and Gomech for all their enthusiasm and the hard work to make this workshop happen and bring us together. And of course, for the support of our department development planning unit, who generously helps us and support us to invite our speakers and bring together this lineup of wonderful scholars and researchers. The idea of this workshop is simply, it's the outcome of several interesting one-to-one conversations with colleagues at DPU, where we are based at and we work, Development Planning Unit, especially those of us whose research is concerned with the spatial inequalities and political and institutional dynamics of urban development planning in the Global South. We believe the discussion we are going to have today is important for the field of development planning and urban studies, but also it's an important session here at the Development Studies Association conference, where there is an active study group on development and religion that formed in 2016. And since then, they have been doing very interesting work in bringing together debates on faith, development, and decolonization. So I personally learned a lot from the work of this study group, and I really advise you that if you're interested, go and check their work on the website of the Development Studies Association at the DSA conference. And as we all know, in the past 2 decades, the study of religion and particularly faith-based organization and religious political groups received attention from academics and researchers in the field of economies, history, sociology, and political sciences from their own disciplinary perspective. Yet compared to other disciplines, academics and research community in urban studies are quite behind when it comes to the discussion on the role of religion and faith-based groups in planning development. However, I want to kind of emphasize here and acknowledge the very important and seminal work by Lebanese planners, such as Mona Harb and Hiba Bouakar, on the role of sectarianism and religious political groups such as Hezbollah in shaping the urban development trajectories of Beirut. That was very informative for us when we were thinking about organizing this workshop and thinking about this topic. But at the same time, what is striking for us that in recent years, we've experienced significant surge in scholarship around decolonizing planning, decolonizing development and curriculum. Yet we see minimal debate on the role of faith and religion in these recent studies and scholarship on decolonizing planning and curriculum. Therefore, we believe that these recent activities of religious organizations and religious groups in contexts such as the Middle East and the Horn of Africa, which soon you see the reflections and contribution of our speakers, we believe that these activities of presenting a challenge for development planning theory and practice, which urgently requires further analysis and research. Therefore, in this workshop, we ask our discussant to critically reflect on a number of questions. First, why the role of religious organizations or faith-based organization matter for the field of development planning? How to evaluate the role of these organizations in the development and planning of cities in the Middle East and the Horn of Africa? And what are the methodological challenges in doing so? What are the mechanisms in which they operate, and what is their positions as non-state organization and their varying level of relationships with central and local government? How to evaluate their role in promoting inclusive development and urban justice? And lastly, how can we imagine the future practices of this organization in shaping the development trajectories of cities in these regions? So I don't want to take more time, and I think we want to pose this question as in the same order as Gomech was explaining. So we start with Hanodi. Hanodi is one of our great PhD students at DPU whose work is on camps in Palestine and Israel. But she's Lebanese and she has great insight from Lebanon. So Hanodi, please.
So hi, hello everyone. I'll try to be realistic to the 5 minutes, but if I left with 1 minute enough, I have two short videos as a provocation. But if time does not allow, I'm fine. Okay. So in response to the workshop theme, I call for an investigation of the theopolitical dimension of faith-based organizations within the Middle East region. And by theo/theology of politics, I mean to dig further into the FBO's ideologies, histories of formation and transformation, to be able to understand their impact on changing and shaping the space in which they operate. Now, I can claim from Lebanon that within an interfaith society, FBOs thrive in conflicts and emerge from the perpetual changing socio-political landscape. And indeed, they share power with the state in a hybrid consociational model of governance, directly and indirectly controlling the development scenery in Lebanon. Now, as an example, or as a case studies, in 2020, and amid the harsh moments of the financial crisis in Lebanon, from medicine shortages to political unrest, we wrote about community-based initiatives and volunteer-run association within the Druze community in Sawfar village. Now, Sawfar is an area located in the mountainous part of Lebanon, and they consider themselves to be a minority sectarian group. Now, we framed these initiatives as the big infrastructure of loyalist, fragmented lifelines, as they were launched as a response to the big call to fight the hunger. Now, the Bey his name is Walid Jumblat, and he's a former militia commander and the head of the Progressive Socialist Party, who promotes himself as the great defender of Druze community in Lebanon as a minority religious sect. Now, although such initiatives succeeded in helping people survive the crisis, the Bey's call for Druze to mobilize, network, and to launch initiatives to support their community that is not restricted to a form of lifeline or social infrastructure to provide support for a community in times of crisis. In fact, it proved to us to be sectarian socialist support with strong political connotations, designed and implemented by small circles of trust and loyalty, shared and articulated among individuals in the community to ensure mutual sustainment of the Druze community. Now, before that, I would say the role of FBOs and their practices, as you said, Azadeh, they've been tackled by many scholars in Lebanon. Like Mona Fawaz, she questioned the intervention of Hezbollah as a planning actor in Lebanon and the reconstruction of Beirut suburb and the south of Lebanon after the 2006 Israeli attack on Lebanon. And she basically problematized the intervention within the intervention of the party and the reconstruction process, but the framing was within the neoliberal context. So her framework, I would say, remained within the encroachment of political parties on the public realm, without really digging into what does the public domain mean, or what is the public, which public we're talking about. Now, more recently, I encountered a very beautiful, nice paper by Karpi and Fedian Qasmi, and she was analyzed. They both basically analyzed faith-based Syrian refugees organization in Lebanon, and what they did is actually they situated them as a disguised political project in which workers try to engage with the rhetoric of neutrality to be viewed by the international community as accountable actors. Now, methodologically speaking, I would say, and from my personal experience with working with the Druze community, is that the challenge in studying the FBOs always remains within the accessibility and outreach to these organizations. It's very difficult to get an insider view of their practices, given that the researcher, like ourselves, we're always suspiciously perceived as an outsider. So the main challenge to our work, for example, with the Druze community, was to get in contact with people who are willing to share their stories, who are willing to talk. So what we learned is that trust is needed to be built first to be able to pursue any fieldwork. Now, furthermore, FBOs are well aware of the Western rhetoric about their work, and thus their discourses are often camouflaged with Westernized languages and activism and community work. So I would say reflexivity is highly needed for an in-depth understanding of what's going on. Do I still have time?
Just a minute, I guess. Yes.
Okay. Very quickly, I want just to, it's something very recent. Okay, so these are two videos. This one is, I'm afraid the sound will be very high, but anyway, okay. This is basically a very recent chant. It's called Salam for Monday, Salam Mahdi. It's by Hezbollah in Lebanon, and it's taking massive wave into the country because it's being promoted in Sur, in the south, in the suburb, like everywhere, and people are extremely crazy about it. Last, I would say 2 days ago, this was in Ashrafiyeh in Beirut, and also wait, and this group called themselves God's soldiers. And they basically went against a pride, LGBTQ pride board of flowers that were posted in Ashrafiyeh. Now, they're actually, these are, I would say, extremist Christian parties, and they were going against it. So the reactions were completely different, I would say, although they shared a lot of qualities, a lot of, I would say, values, but the way they were addressed, their location was completely different. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Anna, and that was very interesting. I hope we can go more into detail in the question part. Thank you so much. And now we are moving with Dr. Gülçinerdi.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ayşe. I think between among the presentations, I'm not sure that there is a presentation about Turkey. There was one, and now there isn't. In any case, I prepared something, but it will not be equal with a presentation about Turkey. And I would like to say that I'm really not the specialist of faith-based organization in urban development in Turkey, but it's so I will provide just my observations, general observations about it. So what can I say about the place and role of faith-based organization in Turkey is very different and specific compared to other Middle East countries. First of all, there is a kind of rupture actually in the place of faith-based organization on urban development. There is a period before Justice and Development Party and a period after Justice and Development Party's rule in Turkey about their places. So in Turkey, faith-based organizations have a very specific place. Since the arrival of Justice and Development Party to the political power, their place was quite weak before, as we have a strong secular republican regime of Turkish state until 2000s. And these organizations were not promoted and even repressed by the state and state apparatus, and it was not allowed for them to have important activities, especially in urban space, such as construction contracts. It was really not possible. The GDP, so Justice and Development Party's government has leaned on these organizations, actually its power, and in order to find support in the society and then consolidate its power. Actually, these organizations were really the base of support for Justice and Development Party. Then the FBOs have performed as social assistance actors also during the GDP's government in domestic politics by creating a kind of dependency on and cultivating loyalty to the GDP government with different help programs, etc. And in current situation of political field in Turkey, the FBOs act as the forces of statu quo. It means statu quo, they are trying to keep really the power of GDP government in Turkish society. So they are the direct support of the government, and they keep the statu quo, political statu quo in Turkey, rather than socio-political change. It means that we can't speak about a role of socio-political change for these organizations. In this sense, there is a kind of symbiotic relationship between these organizations and government. The latter favors them in public contracts, and the FBOs support economically and politically the government. So I kind of give me a little bit, and I give you also a little bit, and it creates a kind of symbiotic relationship. We can qualify this relationship also as a kind of political patronage. There are some researchers, Turkish researchers, working about this topic, first of all, Kalaycıoğlu and Köse consider it as a common practice of democratic regimes in Turkey. And according to them, democratic regime as practiced in Turkey puts heavy emphasis in clientelist networks, primordial favoritism, and nepotism. And that's what we are observing actually currently in the relationship between AKP government, so GDP, and these organizations. For example, two faith-based foundations, TÜGVA and TÜRGEV, I found their examples because they are led by the son of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, were most funded organizations by Istanbul municipality in order to build student residence, sportive and cultural buildings, etc. Another organization supported by local government is Ansar Vakfı, which largely operates in youth projects like building complex of residence and social buildings. So in conclusion, actually, during the GDP period, the FPOs are therefore transformed from fluid and community-based semi-official initiatives to official entities. The official status brought state support, growth and propaganda, but also a lot of corruption. Then, in conclusion, many public funds were transferred to these organizations with some opaque ways, and it creates a kind of really clientelist political field in which we don't know who are doing what and which funds they are receiving actually from the government. Now I can finish here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nardi. It was very good to have a perspective from my home country. And we're moving on with Dr. Amina Basha Ekman.
Hi, yes, thank you. Two very fascinating examples of faith-based organizations. And my input or reflection in that regard comes from a different part of the world, which is in the Horn of Africa. And the Horn of Africa and East Africa, Africa in general, are not unfamiliar with the presence of faith-based organizations, whether they're Muslim or Christian missionary type endeavors. However, what we're seeing in the Horn of Africa specifically, and as my case study, if you will, I haven't reached it as much as a case study yet because we're still kind of working towards how to approach this as research. But as far as observation goes in the Horn of Africa, what we're seeing is there is a lack of a presence regarding faith-based organizations compared to how they used to operate in the region and throughout the Somali Peninsula prior to the civil war and prior to the military regime. With the dictatorship, if you will, or the overthrowing of the government in the 70s, there were restrictions on the reach of Islamic organizations, but also other civil society actors such as clan groupings. And that kind of introduced an environment where faith-based organizations didn't grow in the same manner as they have had in other regions of in neighboring countries. But what's interesting in the case of the Horn of Africa is where there's a lack of perhaps faith-based organizations, we see a strong presence of civil society actors in the form of clan groupings as a civil society, or as a society that's kind of contingent on social relations on the basis of clan affiliation. Various clan groups operate in the same manner as faith-based organizations do, whether it's in Turkey or in Lebanon or in other areas. Clans tend to provide social services and infrastructure for their constituencies, if you will. Also because the state is still rather weak in giving those kind of provisions, the capacity for the state to provide welfare and these type of services is not there yet, as it's still kind of recovering from a peace building and state building process since the Civil War. But there are a lot of overlaps with what's happening in the MENA region to see these organizations kind of fill the gaps of where the state can't deliver these type of services, which is impactful in a sense, but also very challenging because they can then kind of dictate the scene of development, and with that kind of alter who has access to the services that they're providing. And I think my 5 minutes are up, but yeah, we'll circle back.
Definitely to it, so. Go into that, and I'll already have some questions for you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I know it's a bit rushed, but we'll continue for our last presentation. We welcome Dr. Azam Kata.
I'm very happy to be part of this research exchange. The topic is fantastic. I have learned a lot from the abstract and also the presentation. And I'm actually fascinated with the fact that many aspects of the issue has been addressed through this short abstract. The main thing that I really enjoyed was that the abstract actually addressed the diversity of the situation in different contexts and help us to deconstruct the essentialist and homogenizing approach to the Islamic institution in Middle East and North Africa. So we already know that pre-modern charities in the Middle East have developed to totally different social institutions, depending on how they relate to the power structure and power institutions inside the society and in the government. Some help to promote social inclusion, some actually contribute to exclusion based on the faith and political affiliation. So this diversity is really important. My own focus in Iran has been on faith-based organization contribution to the social inequality in urban context. And I believe that a comparative lens would help us to understand how they change the situation and transform urban landscape through this controversial role they play. Because apart from the fact that we are dealing with different contexts, in some countries, the Islamic government, the Islamists are in power or part of the power. In some, they are part of a movement. In some countries, the state actually monopolized the services and, the welfare system is centralized. In some, they are not. But apart from these diversity in the context, we actually know that this faith-based organization grow from the grassroots level, from very local, the mosque in each neighborhood, to very high level national and regional entities, which are usually promote capital accumulation through their political network and contribute to the political process in the region. So these different levels of functioning and practice for these organization. While they are networked, they are not, actually, there is not a wall dividing all these different functions. Make the discussion about this organization very complex and controversial, because we need different lenses to grasp these controversial rules and articulate these rules into concepts which actually describe finally they actually promote the equality and change in the society, or they are adding to the barriers of social cohesion and social integration and equity. I want to just mention 3 points out of all this abstract that I read, and also my own work. I believe that in some cases and some contexts, by cases, I mean in one context, they may play different role. They provide social protection against marketization. It's actually the concept of double movement, which Polanyi used in his book, A Great Transformation, when describe how patriarchal institution actually provide a protection against commodification of the of different needs and processes of labor, capital, and it's important to see them as a protection, because they try to provide services, to provide housing, provide infrastructure, which in otherwise they should be provided by the market in higher prices, or people should face with the lack of this infrastructure. In some cases and contexts, they more.
I'm just sorry, we're a bit 5 minutes. If you can wrap up very quickly, I'm very sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I believe that I add this point that the function as function of political Islam mobilization institute have examples around Turkey, Iran, and I want to focus on Iran in my concluding remark that it is a hybrid regime, and faith-based organization receive public funds without actually be accountable to the elected power, but this is they are actually contributing to social inequality while they are deteriorating the national welfare system. So it is important to look at the conflicts they create in the welfare system in the case of Iran. Thank you, and sorry for the...
No worries. Thank you so much. I hope we will delve more into it in the Q&A. And now we're all of our presentations are done, and we're going to move on with the reflections. Azadeh, would you like to take the floor?
Now I think we are moving to the participants. We've received a couple of interesting proposals to kind of, let's say, speak to what our discussants are putting forward. So I think, Gomech, the first presentation is by Shabana Fayyaz. Professor Shabana Fayyaz, please.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good evening. Best of luck to everybody. We are all here. And I'm really excited to be a part of this workshop that I really wanted to be in. And Wafa, I'm extremely indebted to your efforts. I keep on bothering you. And but it's been, I intend to make a good collaborative research linkages by entering into the first time into development and faith-based organization debate that I focus on. Well, 3 brief questions. What is the role, how it has managed, and what are the gaps and challenges? Reflecting on just one liner on what has been earlier discussed is 2 themes have come up. Faith-based organizations I think in literature, even in South Asia, are seen by independent analysts as with the skepticism. They are as has been echoed by our, Dr. Azam, they are also seen as the agents of the others. This is one, narrative you come across, and it applies on the other side as well. So whether it is Muslim versus Christian, Jews versus Christians, or whatever. So this is, to me, this is a cross-cutting theme. Second is the accessibility. Accessibility of data. The day I gave this short, my impulsive gesture to be in part of this workshop, somehow I typed this and it got approved, was that I've been thinking about Al-Khidmat and seeing it a lot. But I wanted to know more, but how to know more was a big exercise. And I think to mature this into a paper requires more rigorous. Accessibility on the web is available. People are very kind, but they're kind to tell their own story. This is very much important. And then the important, what I come across in whether Africa, Turkey, and others is the transparency. I have worked with, for my PhD project with the madrasas reforms and others. According to the Islamic faith-based organization, even in our families, it is said, if you give zakat and charity, you're not supposed to show it more and, publicly say it. So when you talk to the madrasas and others, there was a big debate that why you are not claiming it. They said that because we are not supposed to do it. If we disclose the names of those who are funding it, whether through powder or drugs or through their halal money, if we disclose that, we are bridging that trust. So that factor, and that is resolved only by reducing the trust deficit that exists between the faith-based organizations, charities, developed, whatever, and the government, who's supposed to be controlling the dynamics of extremism or violence or sectarianism that can result, or exclusion that can result on the name of inclusion, that has been said. Now coming to, I think I've got 2 minutes left more. Coming to the Al-Khidmat, what I find is it's a success story. It is completely a success story, but the idea is political and religious, of course. There are different dynamics relating to the urban. Is what I have reached to the moment is that why they exist. They exist because they are answer to the inequalities. I'm sorry, I may be disputing Dr. Azam, your narrative is, but in case of South Asia, yes, there are discriminations. They exist because there's no other options available for the people who need it. We can create an options, but imagine the people who cannot create an options. They don't have free medical, they don't have free education, they don't even have free shoes. So that has actually, and this mass has been capitalized for wrong purposes as well. We all know that. How the vulnerabilities in the name of religion, psychological, ideological, religious, economic, politics, social, they are all constructed together through a constructive framework, and you become indebted to a particular idea. And last point I would like to say is that in case of all faith-based organization, I've studied in missionary schools. I've grown up in the churches, visiting them. I love visiting churches, and the mosques and others and temples. But what I feel is that the people somehow, there is a sense of insecurity when you enter into the realm of other. And this is not only with being Muslim and others, it prevails with all my friends across the board. Why? Because we are just being trained to think of others. We don't think of us, we think of others. And this is exactly a dilemma for faith-based organization. Christians see Al-Khidmat as a threat. Al-Khidmat sees them as a conspiracy. And I think this is my last point here is that unless, the society for the development, you cannot dissect development from religion and religion from development. There has to be an interactions, and the faith-based organization people are so good with this exercise. They know how to fuse the things. The problem with the analysts like me and you is that we are caught in the web of analysis, and at times we are lost in the lack of empirical data that is available on ground. Thank you so much for making me part of this exercise.
Thank you so much, Professor Shabana. And we go lastly to Muhammad with his reflection on Lebanon.
Yes, hello. Do you hear me? Just to
Yes,
make sure.
yes.
Yeah, just thank you, first of all, for inviting me. And I just want to say that perhaps what I find unique most about my interactions with FBOs and sectarianism and religion in development is that my interest in the topic stemmed from my interest in Lebanon rather than the other way around, which was quite different than everyone else, as I can see. Yeah, so I was very interested in Lebanon specifically to understand what makes it so complex and so tumultuous. And based on that, I wrote my bachelor's dissertation on the role of sectarianism and consociationism in Lebanese governance and how it impacts the state and the citizen. And through that, I aim to conceptualize and contextualize FBOs and development within the political economy of the state and of identity. And I found that FBOs, as part of a larger, let's say, social stratification of welfare, both impeded the state from acting as a state and helped or benefited the what I call the political sectarian leaders of each religious sect, such as Saad Hariri, Walid Jumblat, and the rest, and that the state was mechanized by these political sectarian leaders for electoral support, and in return they would give welfare, but most of this welfare was stratified by sect. So for instance, there's this, in a book by Melanie Kamet, an instance of a Shia who went to a hospital called Raghib Harb Hospital in Nabatiyya and was turned away because the party records showed that they did not show enough support for Hezbollah. So welfare is socially stratified, whether the parties and the political sectarian leaders claim that it is not. And it is a reality that, from what I found, that the state resources are utilized this way in other sectors as well, not just in healthcare. In education, for example, each sect has the right in the Constitution, Article 10 of the Constitution, to come up with its own school curriculum, its own schools, and without any interference from the state. And this all comes down to the institutionalization of sectarianism, called consociationism. And to understand that more, I surveyed nearly around, I think, 270 people to understand, and overwhelmingly they were against this stratification. But I think that the next step would look into why they are against it. But for example, with the recent elections, it did not come out in larger numbers against this elite, this political elite. But yeah, that's all I have.
Thanks, Mohammed. That's great. So we can continue the Q&A, because I think there is a lot to discuss and there is a lot to kind of follow up on each other. I see there is a very nice discussion in the chat box. I don't know how many of you are following that. Actually, Michael Walls is posing an interesting question on Amina and rest of us to think about the differences between the nature of the clans and clan system in Somaliland and the Islamic faith-based organization in our countries and in our region. And the following question around the issue of participation and how the clanism, or in our case here, Michael, I think my position would be that I see connections in terms of the preconception that clans or faith-based organization or religious groups, as also Azam mentioned, that they are stopping any forms of constructive participation in achieving, let's say, greater inequality in social change or political change. And I'm actually curious to see who is interested to contribute in this, from Gulshan, Azam, Shabana. If any of you are interested to see any links between clans and the nature of clans and the faith-based organization. I think Hanadi also responded to Wafa in terms of the role of Hezbollah as a non-market private planners. I think one question that if there is nobody that wants to pose question towards the reflection of others or what is in the chat box, I also have one other question, because we talk a lot about the role of this organization in the moments of weakness of the state or absence of the state or failure of the state to deliver services, to deliver the welfare, especially to the urban poor. And in a way, we see different kind of formats. In Turkey, is basically these organizations are forming in order to support the legitimacy of the state, to consolidate the power of the states. In Iran, sometimes is in this way, sometimes is the other way around. In Lebanon, we see in a way that actually the state is weak and is absent, and these organizations are in place. The case of Pakistan, I think, was the same. And in some of the literature, I saw that they are theorize or conceptualize these processes as Islamic neoliberalism. So it's a form of a domestication of neoliberalism in the Islamic society, in a Muslim society. I want to kind of pose this to all of us, that because I personally have also problem with understanding what is the absent or weak state also, because all of our countries and contexts are constantly in this state of crisis and instability domestically or internationally. The state is constantly in the making. So the state formation is the big part of all our life, the social and political life. And parallel to them, these organizations are emerging, and at the same time, we can't categorize them really. Are they a non-state? Are they private sector? Are they civil society? In which category are we seeing them? How can we have another kind of understanding of them beside Islamic neoliberalism, and how many of us actually see them in the form of Islamic neoliberalism? I think in that case, also the case of Somaliland is interesting, because the clans are also involved in a lot of profitable activities, road building, hospital building, dividing the land and changing the zoning. So maybe this brings all of us together to think, how do we see this in terms of Islamic neoliberal urbanism? Is it such a thing that we think they can fall into? I don't know who wants to start.
I think Shabana's hand is up.
Shabana, please. Shabana?
Yes, a very, very interesting point you have raised, Azadeh. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
That's right.
Role of faith is, I agree, there is a failure or power, weak state and others. I think this is a term that are very controversial. If you look at the literature that is available, like if you talk of Lebanon or South Asia or others, even Africa, we have to move ahead of these terms. I will put on regarding the development agenda and the faith-based organizations, we should be, to me, we should be focusing more on the stressed state. A state that is under stress. And that a state is under stress, not because only of its economic vulnerabilities, but also because of pandemics or unseen or unpreparedness. Like we have seen, even the best of the best states could not deliver during the COVID, and the urban, health system collapsed. And of course, they were erected. Some came up very quickly, others went. And the role of faith-based organization became very controversial in that as well, specifically in case of Pakistan and others, where the religion became tagged with the calamity as well. Stress state, yes. Another important point is, I think, is the external imperatives of faith-based organizations and the development agendas. What we have seen, our friend from Lebanon has very rightly pointed out, Mohammed, and the others, and even others, the development agenda has been used as the tool to be an influencer in the certain context. And that context plays more effectively in the places or the hotspots that the big actors, whether they are religious actors or geoeconomic, they want to control. So this is very important. We cannot diffuse the development work from the power politics. And this power politics happens at the faith-based organization level as well, across whatever religion or the sect or the clan or whatever they are pursuing. This is thing. And other important point is that sometimes, like Pakistan has suffered because of sectarianism, race to be the leader of the Islamic world, same in the Middle East as well. You could disagree with me, Iran versus Saudi Arabia. The whole sectarianism and it paralleled with the multi-dictatorship regime of having a Salafist state of General Ziaul Haq with the Islamic project of throwing away being with the USA in Federal Russia.
Sorry, Shabana,
So
I don't want to interrupt you.
So this is very important. I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you. So we move on to Dr. Azam Khatam. I see your hands up.
I believe to address this complex question that you have, 2 points about our context are important to make. One is the scale of the religion and religious institution. We shouldn't forget that while, for example, in Iran, they are part of the power structure, they are part of the phony capitalism that goes on in Iran, and the public enterprises and factories, plants, all are overheaded to this organization, and they build part of a big chunk of the economy are controlled by them. At the same time, the mosques are part of neighborhoods and they contribute to claim making by poor. I mean, for example, Basij militia, which actually suppressed the middle classes in all parts of the city, may give a voice to poor people in one neighborhood. And we know that in urban riots in Iran, during the 90s and after that, they were part of this claim making of the poor. So the scale is important when we are talking about these institutions, and their future would not actually make a very homogeneous structure of this institution. I believe this divergence will continue. The second thing is about the everyday religion, and how this concept could help us to understand the scale of the work and practices of this. In Iran, I see they are dismantling the welfare system, the national welfare system. They are dismantling it. They are giving the task to this faith-based organization, which are part of foundations, the big foundations like Mustazafan, Bunyad Mustazafan, like,
Deprived Foundation, yeah, Foundation of Deprived, yeah.
So at the same time, we have new movements like the pro-justice, Edalat Khahan, who are Islamic, who are part of this Basij militia, which are going through urban contexts and, try to help people to make claim or resist, renew or resist, demolishing of the poor neighborhood. These controversial processes needs that the methodology that we use actually be kind of, mixture of the political economy to track down how they contribute to the budget of the state, to the economic activity. At the same time, the citizenship studies are important. It is an important lens, how they actually, they are changing this urban citizenship system in our context.
Thank you so much. We are, I think we have to stop at 4 o'clock, and luckily no one stopped us by the conference organizers. But I just want to say that this is just the beginning of our conversation, and I do hope that we keep in touch, continue to consolidate a strong network to share, because in this 1 hour we can't really go into in depth of such complex topic as many of you raised here. But we just wanted to say that this is the beginning. We are thinking to have multiple roundtables and seminars in the future that hopefully we can expand the discussion, even bringing other colleagues from different geographies, as Shabana already mentioned, from South East Asia and also even South America, breaking also the idea of political Islam and even bringing other religions into the conversation, as we started to see even similarities in different geographies and different religion. So I just want to thank you again for giving your time, giving your great insight and wonderful contribution. It was really, really inspiring for us. And as I said, we will be in touch with you and we will update you on what comes next. Hopefully soon, very soon. We don't want to lose the momentum, because we think from the kind of attendance here, I can say that there is the place for this discussion. And again, thank you so much for being with us. We will also save the chat box and share with you with an email all the conversation in the chat box, because I think it was a couple of points that was very, very interesting. But unfortunately, because of the time, we couldn't really go in depth. But I see there are wonderful discussion in the chat box, which we will share with you. Gomech and Rafa, any final remarks or closing before we say goodbye?
I would like to thank you to all participants and attendees. And as I said in the chat box, I'm looking forward to meeting you all in a future platform to discuss more in depth all these very interesting quick questions. And sorry for the short. Hopefully next time we will be able to go more in detail. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.